En Camino with Kit Hogg.
Sometimes you meet someone whose life story simply stops you in your tracks. My guest this morning is a person whose courage, optimism and self-belief are nothing short of inspirational. She served in the British Army in both Iraq and Afghanistan, a commission cut short in overcoming a rare, near-fatal cancer, to ride a motorbike solo through Patagonia, to become a single mum, offering leadership courses, firearms training, as well as working in support groups for Army veterans. Recently, she's come to live here in the province of Malaga. Kate Surman, welcome en Camino.
Thank you very much.
Kate, you grew up on your parents' arable farm near Oxford, but what attracted you to a career in the military and how did that come about?
Oh, well, I think I knew from an early age that I didn't want a sort of standard 9-to-5 job, and I wanted to be outside, and I was very sporty. So actually no sort of military background, bar my grandparents. I ended up at a careers evening at school only just before my GCSEs. And there was an army stand that basically said I could do those things, be outside, play lots of sport, and be sponsored through university to do a degree. I knew my parents weren't overly affluent on a farm, and I thought it looked to be a good opportunity. So I found myself signing up to an Army sixth form college, and it went from there.
It went from there to Sandhurst?
I did the 3-year engineering degree sponsored by the Army, and then it was the year at Sandhurst.
Mm-hmm. And you joined the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. I mean, for me, auto electricians are the most hallowed of all mechanics. So they just sort of look at a loom of wires and somehow know what to do with them. Are you good mechanically? Are you an auto electrician?
No, well, I actually chose to study civil engineering in the end because it didn't have the module with electronics in it. So I think the role as an officer was to have enough knowledge to not have the wool pulled, but also really being managing technicals and subject matter experts, so experts in their field. So most likely others could do the job, and I had an overall understanding.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So you described stepping into that job, having left Sandhurst, where on your first morning you engage en masse with the 50 or so blokes of whom you're in charge. Can you describe that moment?
Yeah. So my first posting following Sandhurst in a 6-month sort of young officers course was to go out to Germany. I was posted to Osnabrück, and the first day of my new posting, this time a 22-year-old second lieutenant, female clearly, was the first day of pre-deployment training to go to war in Iraq. And I was on the parade square in sort of bleak Germany with 50 faces looking at me for inspiration and sort of motivation as to what we were going to do. So it was a steep learning curve.
So you presumably had something to say to them. You had something prepared.
I think over the year at Sandhurst, you sort of dream about that moment where you'll first meet your troop or your platoon. I can't remember what I said at all, but words to the effect of looking. That's the key.
Sorry, I missed that. I missed that. Words to the effect of
looking forward to getting to know everyone individually, because I think that's the main thing of a team, that everyone brings something to the party. And it's about knowing what makes everyone tick, I guess. And also a big thing for me is sort of values of honesty and integrity and things like that. So I think I spoke a bit about that, and that we're a team now, and let's make sure things are in the open and work together. And a distant memory, but something I had rehearsed, but you can never sort of replicate that feeling.
Sure. And generally, though, what was it like being in the army as a female in charge of male soldiers?
I absolutely loved my career in the army. I think, being a woman in the army, I think I always felt, as an officer, we were posted every year or so. So you're almost having to constantly prove yourself and prove your worth. But I don't know if that's specifically because I was a female, or anybody posted every year needs to earn respect of their soldiers. And so I suppose you're constant but alert to be trying to prove yourself and gain respect.
Sure.
So that was quite tiring, I suppose.
Yeah.
And yeah.
As a woman, though, did you feel that it was somehow necessary to outperform your male counterparts?
I think as a female leader, everybody has their own method. But I think trying to lead from the front, specifically kind of with regards to fitness back then, I'm not sure about now, was everything. How fast you could run, how far you could go with so much weight on your back. So for me, it really helped to try and keep up there with my fitness, so you can be leading from the front and questioning why someone isn't up with you, and it's an instant way to earn some respect.
Sure. So that actually brings us on to sport. You love sport, and I guess there was lots of opportunity to play sport in the army. What sports do you particularly love? Yeah,
the army was fabulous for that. I started off, hockey was my main love. Started as schoolgirl hockey and sort of played county hockey, and then played for the army, which was fabulous. I also played rugby for the army. Again, travelled far and wide with it. And a crazy sport called kabaddi, which was an Indian game that I managed to be in the right place at the right time and land an opportunity to travel quite a few countries playing kabaddi.
Right. Now, I looked up kabaddi yesterday because you'd spoken to me about this before. For anyone who's not familiar with kabaddi, I watched the video. I couldn't quite work it out. It seems like a weird mix between wrestling and rugby. Can you briefly just give us a rundown of the rules? There's a sort of go on, tell us roughly. Give us a rough explanation.
That's a great overview. So it doesn't have a ball. So I say it's a bit like a cross between wrestling, rugby without a ball, and sort of British bulldog, if anybody knows what that is. So there are two different sorts of kabaddi. We played this sort of circle kabaddi, and you'd have to you'd send a raider, so a sort of attacker from your team, through a gate in the middle of the circle into the semicircle, or the half of the opposition. And they'd have 3 or 4 stoppers, blockers, defenders, linked arms, and you as the raider would have to touch one of them within 30 seconds and get back out the gate in the middle of the circle back into your half for a point. And then so either they could avoid you touching them in the first place, so you never got your point, or once touched they could stop you getting back out through that gate. So they could wrestle you to the ground, and you can wriggle and kick and try and get a fingertip over the line, basically, and then you just keep doing that. So their team would raid your team, you would then raid them for points. So these the four. Are you playing this with other women, or in a mixed team, or what? Yeah, no, this was with other women. Yeah.
Right. So that's kabaddi. Now, you did stints, Kate, in in Iraq and Afghanistan. That was with the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. What role were they playing in those conflict zones?
So it varied for me. I in Iraq was early on in my career, and I sort of had command of about 50 men of a platoon, and I had recovery mechanics. So they would have sort of, let's call them civilian tow trucks, and they would be going out, so from an operating base out to recover vehicles that had either broken down or were IED'd, blown up, and then they bring them back to base and be repairing them. I later commanded sort of vehicle mechanics. They might be doing power pack lifts, or essentially commanding a sort of workshop, a garage of tradesmen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you reciprocated that later in Afghanistan.
Yeah, similar in Afghanistan. I was a little bit more senior at that point and had sort of command of 110 soldiers all over Afghanistan. The sort of 11 subunits of kit and equipment that we were supporting. Mm-hmm. So anything that was electrical or mechanical, essentially there would be REME people there, trying to fix it and maintain it and support it. So I was managing the careers of those tradesmen, but also trying to make sort of engineering decisions, and informing various superiors the equipment, the state of their equipment.
Mm-hmm. So how many tanks or armored personnel carriers were available, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Now, your time in Afghanistan, though, was characterized by a blight, wasn't it? You describe that, because I've got toothache now, and I know you can't get away from it. But your toothache was rather more intense than just one aching tooth.
Yeah, I mean, before deploying, you try and get your ducks in a row, and I thought I might need a filling, so I did go to the dentist and try and get a filling sorted, but it didn't seem to sort of solve the problem, and you get on with it. And I deployed out to Afghan, and I just had this sort of toothache that became worse and worse, and I was taking painkillers and soluble aspirin every day, and then it became to making sure I do it every 4 hours just to get through, and I didn't sleep a night. And there were sort of people losing limbs. There were people losing their lives out there. And I just thought I'd eaten too many sweets. And, massive mentality with the army is to just crack on. So I did just that. At sort of opportune moments we have this rest and relaxation R&R for 2 weeks to go back to the UK, and tried to see a dentist and sort of drilled different teeth and root canal and didn't sort the problem out. Shall I go on?
Yes, please, because this is kind of seminal, really. This is a moment I know I want to get to.
Long story short, I had this terrible toothache for about a year without an X-ray, and once I was back in the UK, and you sort of get posted around and different dentists. So I saw a dentist, said I can't really put up with this pain anymore. And in fact, my mother got involved at one point, which I was absolutely mortified about. A 29-year-old captain in the army, and I've got my mum trying to get some action on this toothache, but
hang on, that's what mums do, though. That's what mums do, Kate. I mean, try and be nice.
I know now. I have to thank her now, I'm sure. But at the time, it was fairly mortifying. I had this X-ray which showed a possible dental cyst, which I had removed and thought everything was sorted. And I got a call back from the hospital saying, you need to come in and we need to speak to you. And I said, oh, not possible. I'm, busy with these 50 soldiers I'm looking after. Ended up having to go, and I had to sit down. That dental cyst was a tumour that's eaten away half your jaw. You're going to have chemotherapy and your jaw removed and rebuilt using another part of your body. So yeah, hammer blow.
Yes, that must have been quite a day, really, getting that news.
Yeah, weird. I didn't cry, or I was quite matter of fact about it, going, okay then, I like a challenge. How are we going to skin this cat?
And so how did you? And I mean, the army, you then went through a period of sort of debilitating. Well, you said that you used the phrase when we were speaking earlier about being medically downgraded by the army. Did this?
Yeah, I mean, it all happened. Sorry.
Go on. No, tell me.
No, it all happened very quickly, really. Before I knew it, well, I really had a week to 10 days, I think, before I was advised or told that I needed to be starting chemotherapy. So I sort of only told my sort of sergeant major, my right-hand man at the time, what was going on, and didn't sort of make it public news. And basically had to sort out moving out of a flat I was in, packing a bag, and stepping out of that workshop into the unknown, really. So it then dawned on me, if I'm having chemotherapy, what about sort of preservation of eggs to have children and fertility and all that side of things? So I ended up having a surgery within about a week to remove an ovary, because there wasn't time to harvest my eggs.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate. Were you having your jaw rebuilt at this moment?
No. So the plan was going to be 6 months chemotherapy, the surgery to remove the jaw and rebuild, and then another 6 months chemo. So initially it was oh my goodness, how am I I never even thought about this, preserve my eggs. And just to rewind slightly, it's such a rare cancer, I now know 1 in 2 million, that there were only very few places in the UK I could be treated, and Oxford and London were the options, and luckily I was from Oxford, so if there was any luck involved there, I was quite lucky that I had family in Oxford, and this sort of primitive science of removing the whole ovary, I think I was maybe the third in the UK for it to happen, and that's in the freezer, actually, still is. And the whole idea was to graft slices of ovarian tissue back into you where your ovary used to be, to sort of reboot hormones and things. Well, that was the idea at the time. And then I got into this sort of, had to put a Hickman line in so they could sort of give me the chemo straight into the bloodstream. And I just remember that made me very upset, because I was told I couldn't swim for a year, and that's actually what made me blub with tears, not the fact I was getting chemo or I had cancer or anything, that I wasn't going to be able to swim and get it wet for a year. Okay.
Now, during this period, had you already been discharged by the army? Were you still in your condition?
No, I was, again, very fortunate, really, that yes, I was medically downgraded, but I was kept in the army, and very luckily sort of paid until I was ended up being medically discharged a couple of years later, and yeah, that was unfortunately the end of my military career.
Did you feel supported emotionally by the army during this time?
Interesting you say emotionally, because
Yes.
obviously very blessed to have been sort of paid through. I think it's a really tough one. I mean, the 1 minute you're in it, in very much a family environment, living, breathing it, and the next minute you're out of it, and you're taken out to be sort of a number and administrative, looked after by a sort of personnel recovery unit. So you're not with the people that you are used to seeing and being with. And I was, in Oxford, but being looked after by a unit in Aldershot, for instance. So not far away, but you're not part of it.
No.
They do have a system of welfare officers, which were good, but I mean, maybe a visit once a month or something. So it was exceptionally hard for me, for being, commanding soldiers and playing sport, representative sport, 1 minute, like with friends and colleagues around you, to then nothing, and moving back home, hardly able to get up and have a shower at 29, 30 years old.
Yes. Kate, we were talking about your cancer. When we were talking earlier, you said that the difference between obstacle and opportunity is attitude. Was that one of the lessons that you took away from this ostensibly hideous episode?
It's one of my favourite little quotes, actually. I think just when things seem hard, I think it puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? That there are people out there suffering a lot more, perhaps, or people tend to moan about things that maybe we shouldn't. And I just think there's always some positivity to take away. I think managing expectations was a big learning.
Sure.
And being able to reframe and look at things differently.
So moving on to happier times. On recovery, you travelled to Patagonia and spent a month there solo on a motorbike. I mean, there were motives for such an uncompromising trip. Was this to reconnect with yourself, to prove you still had it, or was it an escape somehow?
I think all of the above. I don't know, when something like that happens, I think you've got a bit of a chip on your shoulder. Run a marathon and prove to the world that you can, or to the world or to myself, I don't know, that I can do it again. And linked in with an opportunity. I'm not employed anymore. I became self-employed. I'm not bounded by other limitations that other people might have, and also escape. So all of the above. I just felt I needed an adventure and a challenge, and that it was.
So fast forward to the present day, you're now a single mum with a 3-year-old living in the Andaluz Campo, a situation that might seem counterintuitive to your past. A, how's it going? And B, what sort of vision do you have for your life here?
Brilliant. I'm glad I've made the move. I was facing a lot of challenges back in the UK, sort of closing down a business, and it was the catalyst to get me to move out here, and I've done it under a sort of digital nomad visa. So that's been challenging, just the paperwork side of it. I'm not yet a Spanish speaker, but I'm learning. And I have got my 3-year-old into a little mountain village school. And in fact, the other day he said his first bit of Spanish at home.
Oh, brilliant.
So I guess it's going well.
What were his first Spanish words?
He was... he was saying, "Mummy, which of these cars would you choose? Este, this one, or this one."
Okay.
So he's teaching me each day, and I say, "Oh, can I can I take your bag? And he said, oh, it's my mochila, mummy. So yes, he's
Right.
correcting me daily.
Yeah.
But so again, when I look at things and doubt or question whether I've done the right thing moving here, I think hopefully giving him that experience in another language can only be a good thing.
Yeah, sure. I've certainly found that with my kids. And the vision you have for your life here.
It's hard to know how it's going to play out. But initially, with a 3-year-old and a dog, for me, it's about being present and having the life experience. I can't give him loads of money at the moment, but we can enjoy being barefoot in the nicer weather, playing with sticks and meeting friends, and taking him to the beach after school. And for now, I think that's enough. Beyond that, he may be wanting more than a mountain village, and I'll have to think about cross that bridge when I come to it. So sort of each day as it comes.
Sure. We're going to have to leave it there. Kate, thank you so much for your time, and the very best of luck with everything. I hope it all goes really well.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye now. Kate Surman. Thank you so much.